installment of my new video series of some of my creations in the kitchen based on recipes from my family, friends, and some other concoctions that I've put together. This first video is kind of an experiment to test the waters, see how things go, have a little fun. Today we are going to be putting together my mom's famous recipe, salsa. It is a favorite of many from work and friends, and I get asked quite often to make a batch of salsa. So I'm going to put it out there for you all to see so you can make it yourself. I hope you enjoy it. Here is what you're going to need to get to make this Darlene's famous salsa. First thing, you want 4 large cans of diced tomatoes. Brand doesn't really matter. I've used Hunt's, or in this case I've been using Safeway brand. They were on sale. You're going to want to get 1 large can of the Mexican style pickled jalapenos. I get them large or chopped because everything's going to end up in the food processor anyway. I use 4 large jars of diced jalapenos. Give it some heat. I use 3 of the Safeway brand whole green chilies. Those also are going to go into the food processor. 2 small jars of the small minced garlic. Now I'll go to the refrigerator. Depending on how hot you want it, generally this recipe makes about 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons of salsa. Lasts quite a while. So for a batch that size, I generally use 4 fresh jalapeno peppers. That's where your heat comes in. 2 bunches of fresh cilantro. God, I love that smell. And I think this is the secret, and I'm not sure why, but 6 bunches of green onions. This seems to be where the distinct flavor of this version of salsa comes into play. So the first thing that we want to do is get our base going. I take 2 of the jars of tomato and just plop them right down into my container. It's best to use a big container because when you're stirring it, it won't go slopping all over the place. So now I have 2 jars of minced garlic that I'm going to put in after the 2 cans of tomatoes. Juice and all. And I'm not sure if order really matters. It may be more of a mental thing, but it seems to come together easier when I layer the ingredients a little bit. I'm just going to put the 3rd can of tomatoes in for now. And now I'm going to add the green onions. So what I'm going to do with my green onions is, I don't have a very big food processor, but it works for what I need it to. If you have a big food processor, this will go a little faster. So what I do, I take my green onions, of course cut off the ends, and I just kind of give them a quick chop into little pieces like that to put into my food processor. I can get 2 bunches in each chop. It's a little time consuming, but it's well worth it. 1, 2. Now you want these chopped up pretty fine, so you might have to give them a little push with a spatula to get them going. So I will turn on my food processor. I use Pulse. I'm just going to hit chop for a little bit. This is about the consistency that you want to dump them into your salsa. Get our little spatula out here. Like I say, most people have a larger food processor. I've got the smaller one, but it works just fine. I'm going to go ahead and chop up the other 4 bunches of the green onion, and we'll get to our chilies after that. Woo! Making my eyes bleed a little bit. Okay, so we got all of our green onions food processed. They're in the pot now with the diced tomatoes, the garlic, and the green onions. Right now is probably a good time to season it. I don't use a whole lot of seasoning, just a little bit of salt and pepper. Kind of gives it a little kick that it needs to liven it up a little bit. Depending on your taste buds, I'm not much of a salt person, so I just kind of sprinkle a little bit in there just to bring out the flavors. There goes our salt. Here goes a little pepper. Just a little bit of pepper. All right. Give that a little stir. You can really smell the green onions. Got a little red in the face. Chopping those up, I'm not sure why. So, next is the base of our heat. And I like a little bit of heat in my salsa, not a whole lot. So we're going to go with the normal fresh green jalapeno, and we're going to cut that up
take the seeds out, and those will also go into the food processor. Yep, smells pretty good. So 4 fresh jalapenos is more than enough to give it a fair amount of heat. Sometimes I'll make a batch and I will not add any of the fresh jalapenos. One more. This batch is going to have a little kick to it. Okay, so we have our fresh jalapenos in our food processor. To give it a little moisture, I'm going to take one of my jars of green chilies. This is just a Safeway brand whole green chili. It's probably my favorite part of the salsa. I love green chilies. I put the juice and all in there. This kind of makes the mix a little bit better. You add that, the juiciness of the green chili with the jalapeno. So I'm going to chop this up. There we go. Dump this in. So our fresh jalapenos are in there. Now I'm going to add my diced jalapenos. These are still hot, but not quite as hot as the fresh ones. They got some heat to them. They got great flavor. So this is what we're going to use. And it's up to you if you want to put these in the food processor to get them a little finer. I generally do 2 or 3 in the food processor with the green chilies and then leave one a little whole because I like my salsa just a little chunky. Again, however you want to make your own salsa is completely up to you. I just kind of do it in layers because it seems to blend everything together a little better. So I've got 2 jars of the hot jalapenos and I'm going to put 1 jar of the whole green chilies in the food processor with it. Kind of marries those flavors a little bit more. So we have 2 jars of hot jalapeno slices left. And I'm going to take one and I'm just going to dump that right in on top. Give it some thickness. Dump the other one in too. I started doing this a couple batches ago. I found something that I really enjoy, and it's It's a Mexican brand pickled jalapeno, and Boss is the brand, and they have little pieces of onion and carrot in there for flavor, and it's pickled. Not much heat, but a lot of good flavor. So I'm going to take this can, puree that up as well, and dump it in the salsa. Juice and all. Save some of the carrots because they're good just to eat by themselves. Give them a quick blend, chop. There we go. I've got one more jar of green chilies I want to use. I'm going to give this a quick stir. And each time I make this, it always turns out just a little different, but it's always pretty tasty. Before I put my green chilies in, I think I'm going to put my last jar of diced tomatoes in there. So there goes my last jar of diced tomatoes. I'm going to give those a little bit of a stir. My bucket is getting nice and full. Just enough room for the cilantro and the other jar of green chilies. I think this is going to turn out really good. Alrighty, we got that good and stirred up now. I'm going to put in my last can of green chilies, give that a quick chop in the food processor, and we're just about done. Alrighty. Our bucket is getting full. That's a good sign that we're just about done. So the last thing that goes in is one of my favorite ingredients dealing with any kind of cooking, and that's the cilantro. Ooh. Man, that smells good. So what I do, I take my bunch, I give it a little 3 or 4 spot chop. God, it smells good. Then I add each bunch, each section that I've chopped, and I just kind of stuff it in my food processor. And we're going to want this pretty fine so it's not terribly leafy inside the salsa. No matter what you do, you're going to have some big leaves, but that's good. It's supposed to be that way. Alrighty. One more batch of cilantro, or bunch, and that's all she wrote, folks. Like I say, it's never quite the same every time, but it always tastes about the same, if that makes any sense. This salsa is quite enjoyed by many across the land. Was perfected by my mother, of course, Darlene. That's why it's called Darlene's Famous Salsa. Great, great scholars in the world, Dan Johnston, Ziad, guys like that that are well read, well spoken, know what they're talking about in the food world. Really kicked this off years and years ago, working in a dental lab of all places. That's kind of where it gained its fame. I started bringing it to work in the holidays, and now people just can't get enough of it. So I'm kind of taking over where my mom left off and making people happy. One more chop with the cilantro. With all of that scraped out of there, and get in this bucket. It's just about over full, but I will make it work and it will be gone in no time. The salsa is now pretty much done. Gonna give it a little stir. Sometimes it, being that I overfilled it, not quite, I still got room, but you really want to give it a good stir. And just like anything that you making like this, salsas or dressings or sauces, you know, it's way better when it sits overnight and they get those flavors married together. I'm going to give this guy just a little bit more salt. A little more pepper. Now, I like my salsa a little more on the chunky side. If you like a finer salsa, like a restaurant style salsa, you know, don't be afraid to put your tomatoes in the food processor or get everything nice and chopped up a little finer. It's all how you like it. If you like it mild, don't add the fresh jalapenos. If you like it hotter, add a few more, maybe a habanero if you're feeling spicy. So this is my first video installment. This is more of a experimental video. A few of you already know that I am making this, so I'm sure you'll get a few laughs out of it. It's all about the fun. So I've got a good stir on that. I've got it in a nice Winco Special Tupperware. So there it is. That's a good 2 gallons worth of salsa. And if I can flip it upside down without having it go everywhere, that's much better. So just kind of give it a good shake. The salsa is done. Now let's give her a try. That is pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. And surprisingly, it's got a little bit of heat, but not as much as I thought it was going to. So I'm going to seal this up. Put it in the refrigerator, let it sit overnight. And I'm sure all my friends and some of my family are going to be really excited to get a container of salsa. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully with a little practice I'll get a little bit better at it. And even more, I hope you enjoy your own homemade salsa. I know this seems to be a recipe a lot of people enjoy, so I'm glad I was able to share it with you today. Until next time, I'm Mike Matusik, and I'm damn glad you got to see me.